Peace be with those who follow the true guidance. The God of the gaps phrase is the belief in the existence of God based on mere assumption and traditional belief system that hasn't proven scientifically. In other words, since religious people can't scientifically prove the existence of God and natural world, they use God upon conclusion, but not explained yet due to the gaps of the human knowledge. For example, the people lived in the medieval Europe assumed that celestial bodies are moved upon angels' push and thereby believe the existence of God based on this assumption. The fallacy of this assumption hasn't been realized until Newton announced the laws of motion. There are basically three basic ways of explaining an event. Number one, necessity. Number two, chance. And number three, which is design. Necessity can be explained by the laws of nature. Example, the standing of cloud in the air. Since cloud is lighter than air in a more clear way, since its specific weight is below that of the air, it stands in the air. Chance. This is the way of explaining the occurrences which cannot be explained directly by a law of nature. For example, turning about winds. Turning about the winds is a completely chaotic process. Winds may blow almost in every direction and at different intensities, depending on numerous conditions. Design. Occurrences which cannot be explained both by the laws of nature and by chance are included in this category. The differentiating point with chance is that the probability of realization is incredibly small and a purpose is observed in the event. For example, Bell's body structure suitable for flying. Although we regard the occurrence of any event after the realization of the cause and effect factors as necessity, we, however, cannot escape from the possibility of a chance in explaining the occurrence of an event. By chasing the cause and effect relationships back to the Big Bang, scientists are eager to find a single parameter which explains everything. But what will they do when they find it? Presumably, they will become obliged to explain that single parameter with chance. So Quran also makes such abstractions, like for example when referring to bringing down water from the sky, the Quran presents rain. The Quran presents rain as the last step, as a necessity after a certain point. Therefore, understand this. The Quran crystal clearly follows the process of this law of abstraction in trying to explain an event by simply presenting it as necessity if the cause and effect relationship exists. By doing so, therefore, the Quran assumes the parameters or factors which create the cause as given. So, what we will show here in this video is a careful explanation of the Quran in explaining the laws and occurrence of events of nature that are followed through these three explanations of an event. That is necessity, design, and chance. But the question still remains, what kind of things do we accept God will attribute to himself, and what kind of things would rescue the Quran from falling into the God of the gaps fallacy? Well, the reason of these questions rests in the ways of explaining the existence of anything as we explained earlier. That is, by those three ways: necessity, chance, and design. So, we expect that the events God attributed to Himself in the Quran can only be the events which can be explained by chance or design. So we will demonstrate this by using a particular verse in the Quran, as there are a lot of verses explaining the same process. So we are going to use the 57th verse of the 7th chapter to examine how Quran escapes from falling in the God of the gaps fallacy. The verse begins by denoting, "And He it is who sends forth the winds, bearing good news before His mercy." Quote. Immediately after hearing this verse, we ask, is sending of winds a necessity? Of course not. Blowing of the winds is a chaotic process completely based upon chance. The verse continues by denoting, quote, "until when they bring up a laden cloud." Quote. Here, this is a necessity, lifting and loading of clouds by the winds. And the fact that clouds are lighter than the air can easily be explained by a law of nature. The interesting aspect is the fact that the Quran also expresses this exactly the same way, that is, as a necessity. Note that the Quran doesn't present this as evidence to the mind by saying God does it. On the contrary, it emphasizes that this is a necessity. The verse continues, "We drive it to a dead land, then we send down water on it." Sending the clouds to a dead land and bringing down of water there is a chaotic process, completely depends on chance. Here, it will be appropriate to cite an important method in order to determine the chance. If an event may happen in another way, it means it depends on chance. The sending of the cloud to a dead land here is an event which may happen in another way, as well as raining there. Clouds may have never gone to that country, or may have gone there, but there may have never been rain. The verse continues by, "then bring forth with it of fruits of all kinds." And this occurrence is neither necessity nor chance. So what is it? Subtly design. The God's regrowth of the plants from the stems of those dead plants by way of rain is related to its design. That is, putting the plant's genetic program into the stems. The verse ends by denoting, "Thus shall we bring forth the dead, that you may be mindful." So, the section of the verse, "we will take out the dead like this," isn't an example from which a lesson is to be drawn, but a herald from the future. So, we see in this single verse of the Quran that chance, necessity, and design are used exactly the way they should be, and the God of the gaps fallacy is painstakingly avoided.